This person who's going to be speaking is someone who I know very, very well since he's born, actually. It's me. So I'm going to say a few words if will allow me to. Now, I know Rabbi Kimmel spoke about the Arizal's greatness, and that's appropriate. That's what we're supposed to talk about tonight. And I've always had a question to myself. I was always the type of person that I would ask questions. I always want to know why. I always want to know, why does Hashem do certain things? One of the questions that I always had in my mind, why does Hashem put people like the Arizal Hakodosh into this world? What's the purpose? Should we know Torah? Should we know to do the mitzvah? Should we know all these things? And really it applies also, we're hearing all kinds of stories, and I'm gonna tell a few more stories. We heard about Rabbi Bento and a little bit about Rabbi Alfasi, and we saw how spectacular and how deep their ability to see was. And the question really is, why do we have such people in the world? And today, I don't want to compare Rabbi Yitzchak to Arizal. There's no way. There's no one made a set of baseball cards with statistics, who's number one, who's number two. Obviously, Arizal is much bigger. But we have a person here who everyone, as I said before, everyone has had tremendous experiences with. Experiences that are not normal. If you go around to most people, they would tell you it's impossible for a person to know these things. It's impossible for a person to be so knowledgeable and be able to look so much in depth into a person's life. So the question is, why are there such people in this world who are able to do this? We've had Satmar Rebbe was like this to a certain extent, and very much in previous generations. And there are these great people. Maybe today there's two or three that I know of that I can see so clearly, like Rabbi Kimmel. I don't really know the other two or three, but I don't want to say, because there are people who say that there are other people. So, Baruch Hashem, Rabbi Kimmel is spectacular. And I'll tell you something about a couple of stories about him. Well, first, let me try to answer this question. Why would Hashem put such a person that you can walk over to him and you can say, Rabbi Kimmel, why are things not going well in my life? What do I need to do to fix it? And he could look at you and he could give you an answer. That's the amazing thing. He could tell you, you did such and such an Aveira on such and such time, and if you fix this Aveira and you say these tefillas, things will get better. And there are people who did it, and things got a lot better. There's a person in this room, I'm not going to mention his name, actually there's more than one person in this room who did the same thing. Business was not so good, and he wanted to know what he could do to make his business better. And Rabbi Kimmel told him to learn Mishnayos every day. Had to learn Mishnayos and had to learn a certain way, say it a couple of times, and then say the Taich. And he started doing it. He took it to heart and he started doing it. And he was so successful that all of a sudden, for his store, he started to have to order so much more from his wholesalers that the wholesaler wanted to know what's going on. Why is your business suddenly flying? And he told his wholesaler. Next thing you know, his wholesaler showed up to Rabbi Kimmel. Wait a minute, I want in on this. So he came too. So we had another person learning Mishnayos. And there are people who came in. I've seen a guy come in, and Rabbi Kimmel told him, "You're reading the New York Post with your tefillin on." I said, "What? How do you see that?" I see that you're reading the New York Post with your tefillin on. What kind of comedy is that? You know? And the guy is in a state of shock. But when faced with that, he's reading. He says, "Yeah, it's true. It's true." So he says, "You got to stop it." So this person took the next step. Then I know there's a story that happened this year. And it happened this year, but it happens all the time, this story. Someone comes in, they want a shidduch for their daughter. Let's make a shidduch for your daughter. Who's good for her? When are we going to find her? And Rabbi Kimmel says, there's someone in her life right now, his name is Aaron. And, you know, he's really a better shidduch than the ones you're talking about. And they look at Rabbi Kimmel and they say, Aaron? I don't know anybody, Aaron. I have no idea about anybody named Aaron. I don't know what you're talking about, Rabbi. This is a really typical story. So they go out, and a couple of days later they call back, wait a minute, there is some guy that looks at our daughter very good, and you know, he seems to like her, but he never says anything to her. And his name is, I forgot, I'm going to make up the English name, but his name is A.B. We decided to ask him what his name is, and it turns out his name is Aaron. Is that the person you were talking about? Yes. And Baruch Hashem, this is what happens. Sometimes he tells you something, and a couple of days later, you find out what he meant, which is pretty good. That's something you don't get anyway. Later on, you find out what he meant. Now, I'll tell you another thing. There was a frum person, I'm going to tell you, when we first were starting out, we had an office near Avenue J, and I remember there was a very, very religious woman that came in with her son. She was divorced, and her mazel was horrible. She was just listening to a story. You had to break down and cry just listening to her. And what was going on? She wants to know what's causing my bad mazel. So, and she's pretty close to a Hasidic lady. I think she was a Hasidic lady, if I remember right. And Rabbi Kimmel looks at her, and he says, I don't know what's going on, but I see, every time I look at you, I see the golden arches from McDonald's on top of you. Are you eating at McDonald's? I know this is a crazy thing to say, but it looks to me like you're eating at McDonald's. You're eating tray. And the woman breaks down and starts crying and says, how could you know? How could you know? And that's exactly what happened. This woman was eating in McDonald's, and it didn't occur to her that might have something to do with why her mazel was not good. Obviously, she stopped to see someone that is able to see so deeply. Your deepest secret, and you can't hide it. So you have to learn a very important lesson. If someone like Rabbi Kimmel can see such a detail like this, it's obvious that in Shemayim, of course they see it. This is just someone who's placed down here by the Rebbeinu Shalom. But if he's seeing it, that means that in Shemayim, of course they see it. But Rabbi Kimmel is a demonstration that there's someone in Shemayim recording you. There's something going on. I'll give you another demonstration that happened only a few months ago. And this is something a little unusual, but again, a very religious woman came in to see Rabbi Kimmel in his office. And Rabbi Kimmel, you know, this year he's wearing glasses a lot of times. He got a pair of glasses. And he saw something on this woman that he was so shocked. He saw a physical thing around her, usually seeing things in a spiritual way. But he saw something physically around her, and he thought, there's got to be something wrong. Let me take off my glasses to make sure I'm still seeing. He takes off his glasses, he's still seeing it. Puts on his glasses, he's still seeing it. What was he seeing? He saw a giant 4-foot Salem circling around this woman, circling around her and the chair. It was circling around 40 or 60 times a second. It's hard to measure, but it was going around very fast. It was spinning. It was spinning around her. It's an amazing thing. He's never seen anything like this ever with anyone who walked in by him. And he asked the woman. I think Avram David was in the room at that time. Avram David almost fell down on the floor. Here's a frum lady, dressed sneer-stick, top-of-the-line sneer-stick from everything. And he asked the lady, are you going to church? Is it possible that you're going to church? And the woman says, yeah, I am. Every Friday night I go to shul. Every Shabbos morning I go to shul. And every Sunday morning I go to church. I've been doing it since I'm a little kid. This amazing thing. Who would think that a frum person could be in such a situation? And when you talk about rabbis, do they see things? Who in their right mind would ever make up a story and take a guess about seeing someone at church? They saw it, and this is what's going on. This is what's happening. And she meant well. She thought she's doing something good. Some people It's amazing because most of us here are very firm people, and we don't understand that some people have been brought up from different situations and how they got to where they are. And some people, believe it or not, can get into such a situation. And I believe Hashem understands this and knows this, and He gives the guidance in this world to stop these things from happening. And most of you don't have these type of stories in your imagination. You don't know anyone that fits into this. But today's world, there's amazing things going on, amazing, terrible things. And we have to watch out for our neighbors. But some of these things are so beyond us that we can't even imagine. You would never ask such a question. And for this reason, we have someone like Rabbi Kimmel who sees this clearly. I could tell you a lot of stories like that. I know a frum guy who walked in. I was shocked. I knew the person personally for years and years and years. And he told him, "You're watching Yankee games on Shabbos. You're turning on your TV and you're watching the Yankees on Shabbos." And the guy almost fell down. He was Micah. He's watching Yankee games on Shabbos. It's good to be a sports fan. Maybe it's a little bit of fun. But on Shabbos, after the Shabbos table, can you imagine finishing Zmiris quickly so you could turn on the TV and see the afternoon game? This guy was doing it. And the outside world, he's from God. And we need to correct these people. Someone needs to be able to see it in order to correct these people. I'll tell you one more story. We used to go together at the beginning when organization was not so big. We used to make trips to Florida. Sometimes we needed to get a couple of new people because we needed to build the organization. So we would go to Florida. Typically what would happen, the first night that we would come to Florida, we only knew the first 4 or 5 people who we would see. And we made a week trip. And we didn't know where we were going to get the next people. But we figured we'll start with the first 5 people. They'll say something. And that's actually what happened. We went to someone's house. They hosted us. Rabbi Kimmel would talk to the first 2 or 3 people. These people, before they would run out the door, they were already making phone calls to their friends to come. And by the next night, we had crowds of people coming. It happened every single time we went to Florida. Every single time we went to Florida. There was one time we did we saw people in a shul, and it was Ma'ariv time came, and people were in the shul. People were banging down the doors. We were supposed to leave the next day to go back to New York. We were seeing people, I'm not kidding, till 4:30 in the morning. We couldn't turn them away. They were banging on the doors. They were screaming, "Using our shul, you have to see us." And that's how it was. That's exactly how it was. Because they understood that this was something that you can't get in a regular place. But I want to tell you one particular story that happened with one of these people in Florida. This particular person came, he had a hotel room that we set up to see people. And there was a Russian woman that came in. And she had her issues, whatever it was. She came with her son. And her son was an ox. Just if he stood up, you wanted to run away from him. He looked like a guy who could kill you with his pinky, and he wouldn't have to even take a breath to do it. He looked like a Russian gangster. It was unbelievable. You thought you could die just from looking at him. He was tall, husky, like an ox. It was unbelievable. Anyways, his mother is talking, and he's sitting on the side, and he said something in Russian. He made some kind of comment in Russian. I have no idea what he said in Russian, but it didn't sound good. It sounded like, phony rabbi, that kind of thing, But it was in Russian, so we didn't really know. I didn't say anything. You're supposed to be a good guy. If you're a guy, you ignore things and you don't say anything. And you just go on, you take the hit. Sure, there's always some guy who's going to say something bad about you. You can't, if you came down with the luchais from Har Sinai with lightning and thunder, there's still somebody who's going to say something bad about you. That's how it works. That's life. But, so Rabbi Kimmel kept quiet and finished with the mother. And he said, just a minute, I just want to speak to your son for a second. I just want to say something to him. You can see this skeptical Russian who the last thing he wants to do is hear something from the rabbi. The rabbi says, I just want to tell you something before you go away. So he sits down, and the rabbi says to him, you notice that business hasn't been good the last 2 or 3 months? Have you noticed that? And then the guy's eyes widen open like, uh-oh. No, that's true. Business hasn't been good for the last 2 or 3 months. And he says, do you wonder why business has suddenly, it was so good all of a sudden until 2 or 3 months ago, and all of a sudden now it's not good? Now you can see the guy's eyes are widening open, because how does he know that? What's going on over here? So he says, yeah, I'd like to know. He says, okay, I'm going to tell you a little story. There was a girl, a Jewish girl, that you made her get an abortion. You made her get an abortion. You forced her. And right now, over your head, I can tell you what I'm seeing right now. I see that little baby who was supposed to come in this world, and that baby is sitting on top of you, holding his hands up. And whenever Mazel is coming down to you, baby's batting it away. Why? Because he was supposed to come down to this world, he was supposed to do his tikkun, and you destroyed his tikkun. So therefore, he was given rishus to stop everything that's coming to you. And that's why nothing's happening in the last 2 months. I have to tell you something. This big, giant, husky Russian suddenly started shaking. I mean, shaking so bad that we had a room full of people outside. He could not get out of his chair to go. We said, next. He couldn't get out of the chair. I went over to him and I said, okay, really, you got to go right now. I put him under the arm. He was shaking and he was crying and he was saying, Rabbi, please tell me what I can do to fix this. You're right, I did do this. Please tell me to fix it. But he went from skeptical to full, flat-out chassid in about 30 seconds there, 40 seconds the whole thing took. And when a person does this, this is something, I wish I could tell you that it's unusual. It's not. And every single person who's here knows this. And I believe that what Hashem wants from us is that we should understand, we should learn from people like this. That everything in Shemayim is seen. Okay, here's someone who can show you and illustrate to you that everything in Shemayim is seen. I come in sometimes, Rabbi Kimmel tells me, she's having today. Oof, really bad. And it's true, that was a day that was really bad. I was in a rush and filling on, filling off, and I shouldn't have done that. But I can't hide. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to say, no, you're wrong, Rabbi? He's right, so I can't do that. And this is the ability that he has to see. And I have to tell you something that's very important. Of course, I told you that the most powerful thing that I've always seen are the tefillahs at night. If you know someone could get the rabbi to daven for people at night, that is the most unbelievable thing. That's the strongest thing. And also, of course, is tikkunim. Is people, we always see something happening when he's doing tikkunim. But there's one interesting thing that happened to me. I want to finish off with one more story that happened to me. When I was a younger child, well, I wasn't so young. It was about 20 years old. My children say that was about 100 years ago. So around that time, when I was 20 years old, I had discussed to learn Rav Chaim Sheinberg in Eretz Yisrael. And recess time, you had a long hour and a half. It wasn't called a recess, it was hafsaka really. But you had an hour and a half that you can go out, and do whatever you wanted. You can eat lunch, you can go out, you can relax, you can sleep, you had all these things. And I used to go out a lot of times in front of the yeshiva, take a look at it, see the sunlight, and see things passing by. And there was, around twice a week, I used to bump into this person. He used to wear, to me it was very unusual, because when you're American and you see this, it's very, very unusual. He used to wear a white, looked like a linen suit. And he used to walk down past the yeshiva. And there was something about this person who, I saw something in him that he looks to me like a very holy Jew. I had no reason, it's just something that when I saw certain people, I would see that this was a very, very holy Jew. And so what I would do, I felt in Eretz Yisrael, I did this a lot of times. If I saw someone who looked like a very holy person, I didn't know if he was or if he wasn't, but I would run over to him and I would say Shalom Aleichem. At least I greeted the guy, and who knows who I'm greeting and who I'm seeing over there. And once or twice a week this would happen. I was nearest to show up for a whole year. And this would happen once or twice a week on a regular basis. I had no idea who I was bumping into. I left Eretz Yisrael, and I went to learn by Rabbi Weinberg. But anyways, so I have a friend of mine who stayed there. And we were talking one day, and I used to always say, I never ever really knew who this guy with he'd always come by, wasn't Kiryat Matazar. He would always come by once or twice a week in a white. So the guy says, "Are you crazy, Mike? You don't know who that was?" I said, "No, I don't know who that was." He says, "Mike, you were greeting the Baba Sali every week, twice a week. You were saying Shalom Aleichem to him, and you never knew who he was." And to this day, I hit myself in the head. How I was seeing him, if I would have known that I was seeing the Baba Sali twice a week, and I would never ask him for bracha, never did anything, but I did have a schus. I said hello to him, That is something. And with him, guess who was with him all the time? Because later on I found out, and later on I saw him, was Rabbi Alfasi. Then I recognized him. But here I was just saying Shalom Aleichem, I never asked him more. It's very important. If I would have known, who knows what kind of brachas I could have asked, what kind of issues I could have piled, who knows? I didn't know at the time. And that's the point. Why am I saying this? Because every single one of you have discussed to know Rabbi Yitzchak Kimmel. You don't know what what you see is just the above water thing that you're seeing. You're not seeing what's underwater. You're not seeing, right now, Rabbi Yitzchak Kimmel is still a young person. And who knows where he's going to be in a few years. But it's only going up. That's all I can tell you. And you need to know that you have very big fuss. You're seeing a person whose mamish nisam are happening every day over here. And that's why I'm telling you these stories. And you have a tremendous opportunity. You got to be close. You cannot lose your opportunity. Don't ever not ask for the bracha. Don't ever pass up the chance. Don't find out later what you missed. That's what I'm really trying to tell you. So in the meantime, we've been speaking a lot tonight. Boy, I could make a radio program, a movie out of this already. But anyways, maybe I will. But for anyone who wants, by the way, one of the projects that I did is I filmed a whole bunch of people, some of them are in this room, talking about their experiences with Rabbi Kimmel. If you go to YouTube and you type Rabbi Kimmel documentary, you can see it. It's still in progress. We still didn't finish it. But I want to make sure that everyone understands what a schus it is to be involved with such a person, what a schus it is to support such an organization that's helping so many people. Literally thousands of people have become from talking to Rabbi Kimmel for a few minutes. And I hope that he'll always have this schus and be zeicha to continue with this work and to continue to help people. And we should be all be zeicha to see the Gula Shlema to Mary Emanuel.